Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I think this is a very important development, and that is Japan is about to arm itself with offensive weapons. They had a little kind of clause in their constitution that prevents their military to have offensive weapons, and it seems like they decided to ignore that one and buy offensive weapons. Well, that's a good development, I guess. Let's see what's good for some, bad for others. Let's see who's a winner, who's a loser here. This article comes from Sputnik, and it is from yesterday, which was the 12th of December 2022. Tokyo wants to get Tomahawk Cruise missiles in first offensive weapons buy since World War II. The Japanese government is pushing ahead with a reported plan to buy hundreds of BGM-109 Tomahawk land attack missiles, TLAM, a long-range strike weapon that constitutionally neutral Tokyo has eschewed since the end of the Second World War. According to reports in US media, Japan is seeking to buy as many as 500 Tomahawk Cruise missiles as part of a massive military expansion. The buy is reportedly being pushed ahead as a stopgap measure in the wake of the Taiwan crisis, which entered an acute stage in August after the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited the island in an unprecedented flurry of military activity from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in recent months. And I'm quoting, Japan wanted to limit its defense spending and tried not to acquire second strike capability. But the situation surrounding us does not permit us to do that. Ichiro Fujisaki, former Japanese ambassador to the United States, told a US newspaper, and I'm quoting again, many people thought war was a 20th century issue, but we are now seeing that again. Well, if you have people who are pushing, pulling, and all the strings, maneuver, all these things, what do you expect? Things are not settled because it's kind of impossible to settle everything down. It's a childish idea that you're gonna have world peace unless you somehow you have a tyrant that is capable of oppressing everybody to that point that nobody would be able to even have a knife. Then yeah, you will disarm everyone and you're going to keep an eye on those everyone or everybody. That's an impossibility. That's an utopic, childish, tyrannical, I might say, view. Japan's defeat in 1945 spelled the end of a century of Japanese imperialism, its empire broken up by the surrender to Allied forces as Korea became independent and Taiwan and other Chinese territories were returned to Beijing. Under the aegis of US occupation, Japan was reconstructed as a constitutional monarchy with a constitution that mandated its neutrality. Since then, Japan has maintained a limited self-defense force, although conservative political forces have sought to limit or even undo that principle. Why would you do it? You're under the US military occupation. Why would you bother? Let them fight the wars for you, right? Let them invest because they have enough, right? Unbelievable. And I'm quoting, Japan has long used a variety of surface-to-ship missile systems fired from trucks, aircraft or warship, and air defense missiles capable of intercepting aircraft or missiles. However, the Tomahawk surface-to-surface strike ability and range of roughly 1,000 miles represent a turning point for the Japanese military. The weapons will enable Japan to fire deep inside China and the DPRK from the Japanese mainland in a way that was previously not possible. The missile is also nuclear capable, although as the only country ever bombed by nuclear weapons, Japan is extremely opposed to their existence and use. Okay. A poll last month found that 60% of Japanese citizens surveyed agreed with the idea of acquiring counter-strike weapons. Last month, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida took the provocative step of proposing to increase the Japanese defense budget to 2% of Japan's gross domestic product by 2027, a massive increase that would give Tokyo the world's third largest military budget after the United States and China. Earlier this year, Kishida appealed to the NATO alliance for a closer partnership at a summit in Madrid. NATO's declaration for the first time mentioned China, describing the socialist East Asia state as systemic competition to the alliance. In what way? Economic? Political? Militarily? All of them. In response to Kishida's budget proposal, the Chinese Foreign Ministry condemned the, and I'm quoting, highly dangerous, end quote, move, warning it would, and I'm quoting, put Asian neighbors and the international community on high alert about Japan's commitment to an exclusively defensive policy and to peaceful development. And now, end quote, I'm quoting again, Japan has a territorial dispute with China over the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea, which are uninhabited but occupy a strategically important position. Tokyo is also an informal but open supporter of the autonomous government of Taiwan, which Beijing says is a Chinese territory governed by rebel forces. Japan has increased its cooperation with regional Western allied countries in recent years, including South Korea, Australia and New Zealand, and joined the anti-China quadrilateral security dialogue. Quadrilateral security dialogue with Australia and the US and India, end quote. Other recently announced military projects include a hypersonic weapon program and a joint venture with the UK and Italy to develop a sixth-generation fighter jet. All right, well, it's very strange how certain countries are allowed to arm themselves, but other countries are not. And if you look at why, the argument is because that country made some statements, or that country sponsors some groups, or that country we don't like for certain reasons, like for example, they don't let us plunder their resources and handle their resources the way we want them, get them for free and sell them for a very high price. So that's Iran and other countries. But Japan, which if you look at its past, how long do we have to look at a country's past to say if that country is good or bad? 20 years, and everything before 20 years, beyond 20 years is okay, is forgotten? 30 years, 50 years? What is it? 70 years, 80 years? I mean, if it's 80 years, that's fine. That means, Japan is done, But then why do you have military troops on its territory? If it's clean and it washed its sins, what about Germany? What about other countries that say, let's say Romania decides, you know what, I want to have nuclear weapons. And everybody will say, well, you're a sovereign independent country. If you can, why not? Well, you're a signatory of this, signatory of that, and well, I don't want to be a signatory of anything. I just want it just to make sure that I defend myself in case, I don't know, that country would attack me again. Or first time, okay, yeah, that's how it should work in a so-called free and whatever world these wizards are telling us that we live in. But no, there are certain people who dictate who can have and who cannot have. And in this case, Japan is allowed to have certain kind of weapons. Why? Only because they can pay for it. That's all. And they arm themselves, but to a certain, it's going to be under the U.S. control. Do you remember the U.S. and Japan formed a, how was that? I can't remember the exact term, but I will, try to, how do you call it, paraphrase it. Something like a joint command something unit in Japan that would allow only the Americans to jointly communicate and control Japan's whatever they're gonna do. But Japan cannot do that with the Americans in America, United States. Only over there. Again, and they're sovereign countries. It's so, you don't have to go too deep to find out how rotten the whole thing is and how skewed and unfair. But hey, what can you do? Go and work, pay taxes, drink your beer, watch the stupid TV and go to sleep. And don't make too many kids because they want to get cheap labor from other countries that make a lot of kids, okay? Just have it done, but not kids. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.